23rd Selectmen's meeting. Productions. To my left, we have Kelly Bigos, our recording secretary, Tom Wooden, our town manager, myself, Denise Griffin, Bill Hamlin, and Wendy Wolf. So, first order of business tonight are announcements by Tom.
Thank you. Just a couple of reminders. This Wednesday night at 6 o'clock is the school budget meeting at the elementary school. Yeah, I know. And Thursday at 6 o'clock here in this meeting room is the public hearing for the comprehensive plan. And I have a letter to read to the board, to indulge me. It's from the Boothbay Region Land Trust. Dear Selectmen, please accept the enclosed check in the amount of $420. This check is Boothbay Region Land Trust 2014 voluntary payment to the town of Boothbay Harbor. Every year we make this voluntary contribution based roughly on the state of Maine's open space land use program. 2015 marks Boothbay Region Land Trust's 35th year. Over the last 35 years, the Land Trust has developed and maintained over 30 miles of public hiking trails, preserved a number of scenic vistas, and maintained public access to the shore, including 2 working waterfront sites. This is such a beautiful area that we all live in. Having public access to the forest, fields, and sea is part of the character that makes the Boothbay region so special. Boothbay Region Land Trust is entirely supported by private donation and grants, and thanks to the tax benefits of our 501c3 nonprofit status, we are able to take on the financial burden of public access, trail maintenance, and working waterfront management. The included contribution is a token of our appreciation to the town of Boothbay Harbor for the role you play in supporting the preservation of the region's natural beauty and character. We look forward to continuing to work with the town of Boothbay Harbor to provide these important services to the community. Signed, Nick Ulo. So I would ask the board to make a motion to accept the donation from the Land Trust for $420.
Move to accept with gratitude.
Yes, and second with gratitude.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you. I put in your mailbox at some point, I think it was around the 9th of February. Hey, Russ.
Hi, sorry.
The 2 bids that we got back for doing the town report. One bid was from Lincoln County Publishing, which traditionally has done our town report, and the other was from Express Copy. Those are the only 2 that we've received back. The Lincoln County Publishing bid was $4,580. The Express Copy bid was $4,414.51. I would ask the board to make a motion to accept the Lincoln County Publishing one, even though it is slightly more expensive, because the bid that Express Copy replied back to did not match the quote that the parameters that we sent out. So it doesn't match what we're looking for the book. So I would ask that the board make a motion to accept that Lincoln County Publishing bid for $4,580.
I will move that.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I think it's just worth pointing out that if the difference in the bids would be the number of colored pages, and if one were to reasonably extrapolate the colored pages that we asked for in the Express Copy bid, it in fact would come out more than the Lincoln County Publishing bid.
Correct.
Right? Good.
Sure.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. The last item is, as you know, we've been discussing recently, most recently at our budget meeting last week, about purchasing a Bobcat for the Public Works Department, Bobcat Toolcat 5600 with a 77-inch snow blower and truck loading chute. Primarily the sidewalks on Western Avenue and Atlantic Avenue need to have something done, and that type of machine is the best thing for it. I have gotten 3 quotes for it, as we do in our bidding process. Jordan Equipment in Falmouth came in at $69,591.74, and they have one on hand already in stock. Bobcat of New Hampshire in Dover, New Hampshire came in at $73,186, and Champlain Valley Equipment in East Randolph, Vermont came in at $73,458. So I'm asking the board to use the undesignated funds to make this purchase, and also to approve a purchase order for that amount for the Jordan equipment bid of $69,591.74.
Tom, before we move, does this include the chute?
Yes,
Okay, it does include the chute.
yes it does.
Great, then I'm happy to move it.
Second.
Okay. Can we step back for a minute?
Sure.
I just think it'd be good to have this on the record. I just want to read what the code says, and then I actually have, a motion drafted out, which
Great.
probably contains the right language that we need.
He needs to withdraw his second, and you need to withdraw your motion.
I'll
Yes,
withdraw my
I
second.
will withdraw for the more carefully worded motion that is about to come.
Okay. So just for the record, I just want to review our code about emergency expenditures, because I know that I can honestly say, I think for the time that I've been sitting on the board, this is the first time we are, at least in my tenure here, that we are having to make a purchase under this particular definition. Let me just read this. So at any time, the Board of Selectmen may make emergency expenditures from the undesignated fund balance to meet an essential need for expenditures to protect the public health, safety, or welfare. Such emergencies consist of a natural disaster, a sudden unanticipated event, or severe economic decline, which requires a response by the municipal officers in less time than ordinarily necessary to notify the general public. An appropriation request by the Board of Selectmen for an emergency expenditure shall contain the amount of funds requested, the precise use, the purpose of the funds, and a plan to restore the funds. So I think that last sentence is the key one. And certainly, I think this has been, everybody will agree, this has been an extraordinary winter, and we have an extraordinary amount of snow out on the streets and on the sidewalks that need to be removed. So that is the purpose of the, behind the purchase of the Bobcat. So the motion should be, motion to allocate funds out of the undesignated fund balance to purchase a new Bobcat Toolcat 5600G series, including a snow blower and truck loading chute, in the amount of $69,591.74 to assist the Public Works Department in maintaining public safety due to a natural disaster, i.e., an unusual large snow accumulation. The Board of Selectmen will be meeting to formulate a plan to restore these funds on Wednesday, February 25th, 2015 at 4:30 p.m. at the regularly scheduled Budget Committee meeting.
Sounds like an appropriately drafted motion.
I would add to it.
Well,
And
okay.
I would add to it that the Budget Committee will come up with a plan to restore these funds within the next 2 years, or 3 years, I don't care. But it's in my book, it's not simply okay to say we're going to meet and talk about it. You have to define what the outcome is going to be for an emergency acquisition such as this.
Okay, so the Budget Committee will, I've lost
Develop
already.
a plan.
Develop a plan.
Develop a plan to recover these funds within the next, picky, 2 years, 3 years. And by that, I personally mean, not at the taxpayer's expense, but by stretching out the Public Works budget, or the labor savings that we're going to see from this machine, or a combination thereof.
Right. Okay, great. So I've added, the Budget Committee will develop a plan to recover the funds within the next 3 years.
Fine, then I'm happy.
Great. So can we have someone move the motion?
I move that motion.
Okay, can we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion?
Can I read it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's
From here, right.
I'm just going to say, we've had a lot of discussion about this, and I think it is an important piece of equipment for our Public Works Department. We don't, to my knowledge, we don't have any device that can throw snow into a truck. And we've used payloaders successfully in the past, but this really would be much more efficient for the sidewalks and even for some of the downtown areas.
Okay, while Russ is reading, Mr. Angert.
Are you going to allow public comment, or at least another thought? A couple of issues or a couple of thoughts that cross my gray matter would be, it would be very nice to have this piece of equipment. I couldn't agree with you more. But whether or not at this point, at the end of February, it's an emergency might be debatable. We're on the other side of the mountain, hopefully headed downhill, not on the front side. And I think more importantly, I think that the town taxpayers ought to have their say and input on this issue by way of, let's say, a public hearing, which would not be a big deal. It's a 2-week process for notification. And lastly, which I think is much more, or actually 2 more points. Number one, I would be very interested in knowing how $70,000 in capital expenditures would compare with rental or pay as you need from a local contractor or even a contractor from away. Certainly you can move an awful lot of snow for $70,000, let's say at the rate of $1,000 a day for trucks and a front-end loader or a blower that someone else owns that we don't have to maintain. And lastly, I would say to you that we don't have the equipment to remove the snow. We don't have the trucks available because they're filled with sand and salt, and they are never vacant or empty during the winter months. They always have sand and salt in them. What are you going to blow the snow into? Pickup trucks? So my point is that maybe it would be a whole lot more advisable to have a public hearing, let the people that are interested in putting their 2 cents worth in come to the Selectmen's town meeting or public hearing, express their concerns about the expenditure, and then go from there. But again, there's no emergency at this point. They've handled it quite well. I would agree that our 2-way streets are by and large 1-way streets, but again, we're on the other side of hopefully the storm.
Well, I hope you're right, and I appreciate your comments, and actually, I think you're right. The Public Works Department has done a great job, and we certainly
What are you going to do with the trucks? Are you going to dump the sand and salt out that you may need on a moment's notice in order to blow the snow in? Or are you going to do half of what I suggested, and that is hire trucks from some other...
No,
What we currently do, if I can answer
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
What we currently do, and you've probably seen it each evening after these storms, is we subcontract out to either Rennie or Eric Wood and use their trucks and dump it into those trucks. So you're right, we're not dumping into our trucks and taking all the salt and cinders out. That wouldn't be efficient.
And what's wrong with renting one other piece of equipment, a front-end loader like the one Rennie has, that you are subletting, and scoop the snow up for the time being until you have a bigger window to investigate and take a look at the real necessity?
Well, we'll look at that at the capital plan going forward, but that's not what we needed today.
No, what you're trying to do
The other
now
part
is
of that
buy it.
answer is we actually did do a cost-benefit analysis of how much it would cost to do that versus this machine, and this machine was far cheaper and will obviously be available not only this winter, but many winters in the future. And the problem with renting a front-end snow blower is when you need it, so does everybody else, so they tend not to be available.
That's what you enter into the contracts ahead of time for. And I would add to that, in the past 10 years, you haven't needed one. What would make you think?
That's why
that
we
the
did the
next-
cost-benefit analysis. It would actually have saved us money if we'd had this in past years for clearing the sidewalks.
Clearing the sidewalks?
Yeah.
And as I understand it, the machine will be, it's not only to be used in the winter, it can be used in the summer with other attachments.
Oh, I'm sure the Bobcat can be, but you can also buy a snow blower that will attach to your front-end loader that you already have, or one of the current pieces of equipment for about somewhere in the vicinity of $12,000 to $16,000, not $70,000.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I know that the the Selectmen and the Budget Committee actually did have a brief conversation about this last week at the Public Budget Committee meeting on Wednesday afternoon.
Right.
Is there any more conversation or discussion on this?
I have one comment.
Yes,
Mike
Mike?
Tomko, is it possible to change the language from develop a plan about the repayment to effect a plan? That takes Bill's point and makes it a little bit further. Instead of saying, we're going to develop one, we're going to actually effect a plan.
If it's all right with whoever seconded my motion, I'd be happy to make that change to the motion.
My 2 cents.
I think Wendy did.
Are you okay with that, Wendy?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
That's my,
done.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Then I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of the motion? Okay, motion carries. All right, so next, just to finish off with the administrative portion of this, we need a motion to authorize Tom to sign the purchase order.
so moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Great.
This is for the low bid, correct?
Yeah, for the 69,591.
Right.
Great, okay, I think we are good on what we needed to do for the Bobcat for tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Great, all right, what else do you have, Tom?
That's it for my announcements. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to financials, Julia, hiding in the back of the room, I think?
You have before you your revenue and expense sheets. Total revenue year-to-date, $4,645,743.95. Total expenses, $5,124,706.84. Does anyone have any questions on the revenue or expenses? And I did want to report, in connection with talking about the snow budget, I've seen where other towns are reporting, and I wanted to let you know that we're at about 96.6% after tonight's warrant for total snow budget.
So we can have another 4 inches and then...
That's it.
That's it. I'm glad to see that the expenses have finally coalesced with
They
last year's
have.
expenses.
Yeah.
It only
Finally.
took 6 months.
And as of today, we're at 61% of taxes collected year-to-date. Reminder notices have gone out, and the second installment is due March 12th. Taxes are coming in at current moment. Total accounts payable, $509,387.22. And the bank balance is $1,311,854.46.
Okay, great. Any questions for Julia, anybody? No? Okay, so then we'll move on to our consent agenda. Consent agenda tonight comprises of approving the minutes to our last meeting, which was on January 26th, the renewal of liquor license for Tugboat Inn, Captain Fish's Cruises, Andrews Harborside, and Kaler's Crab and Lobster House. Is everybody okay with taking these together?
I move we approve the 3 liquor licenses and the minutes of the January 26th meeting.
Second.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
I
4
think
liquor
it's 4.
licenses. I stand corrected, 4 liquor licenses.
Okay. And I heard a second over here?
Second over here,
Okay.
yep.
Any discussion? Any comment on the liquor license from the public? No? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move into old business now and take things a little bit out of order. We're going to move first to, I'm going to ask Mike Tomko to talk to us about parking and some work that the planning board has done over the past few months relative to the request that the Board of Selectmen gave the planning board about 6 or 7 months ago to see whether there was any way to improve our parking ordinances for a certain portion of the town, and I'll let you refresh our memory exactly as to what
Sure, thanks, and
worked on with the planning board and with Jeff's help.
you'll recognize my emphasis on specific language only because we've been working for months on definitions, so that's why I was trying to be precise. So basically, the select board came in front of us just to refresh your memory, to sort of recharge, or charged us with looking at a few lots that, in special residential zone, that had been purchased and were considered to be used for, going to be turned into parking areas or parking lots. So the neighbors had raised issue with this, saying they were concerned about property values and security and noise and other things. So the planning board did an exhaustive amount of review looking at all of the areas of the parking, and we got a lot of input from Tom, our town manager, and from Jeff, our code enforcement officer, and even Bob Faunce, the Lincoln County planner. And in the end, what was the cleanest and clearest solution was actually to take our existing definitions and ordinances and just clean up some of the ambiguity in the language. So what we have basically here in front of you are just some upgrades for the definitions, and they just provide a bit of clarity. And then we've got 2 new definitions for the parking lot and garages, which there was never a definition for a garage, and then an amendment to the parking layout and design, which basically we already have, but it clearly states that the parking lots need to follow our performance standards, and that's screening and buffering and things like that. So I can be happy to go into this in more detail, but really the short version is that this answers the question in the special residential zone that you had charged us with about ways to stop those parking lots from happening in the region that's defined as quiet, unhurried, and the land use table only allows, in terms of commercial development, inns, hotels, and motels. So that's congruent with that, with the area. So I can go into more detail if you'd like, or we can save that for the public hearing.
Do we still have separate definitions for parking areas and parking facilities? Those are 2 distinct things?
Yes.
Okay, and one is allowed and one is not in the residential area? Refresh my memory, it's been a while.
Yeah.
It depends on what area in the land use table and basically what zone. And for example, like a residence or house, you have your certain number of vehicles that are required. That's permitted. A commercial business like a bed and breakfast, that requires a parking lot, and there's certain numbers. And what this basically says is that if there is you need to tie the parking area to the principal use of the lot.
Parking area is only, yeah, I got that. It's only an accessory use, so it needs to be tied to the principal lot in some way. It can't exist on its own.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, Mike, with the Squirrel Island parking area, would that be not a parking area, but a parking facility?
That was an interesting way in which it was presented, because it wasn't truly a parking lot, because the land that was purchased was owned by all the individual owners. So it wasn't a parking lot, but it was an area where cars were parked, so it was defined as a parking area. And by having the definition that says it needs to be tied to a principal structure, means that you can't just have the area and load it up with cars. There needs to be some type of primary use or principal use associated with it.
So in your mind, this would resolve the ambiguity that we ran into with that case, where there were, depending upon how you interpreted the definitions, you could end up in one of, I think, 6 different places as to whether this was permitted or not permitted.
Yes, and this doesn't do away with parking lots.
Right.
There are specific areas where they're allowed, and there's a review process with the planning board for that as well, to make sure that there's congruence with the parking in the individual zones.
But the short statement is, do you think this would solve the issues that we ran into with the Squirrel Island parking?
I do, Bob Faunce does, and I won't speak for Jeff, but I think Jeff says yes too.
Okay.
And that was exactly my question, Bill. This was the issue that came up over on the east side of the harbor
Yes.
a few months back, so.
Right. Yeah, we tried a number of different ways to go, looking in terms of number of vehicles allowed, and the clearest thing was not to come up with new definitions, but to basically stay with what we had and just help to clarify them more.
We've got a lot on our plate tonight, so probably we should put the rest of this discussion in for the public hearing. But I have it right then, there will be a public hearing, and then provided presumably all that goes well, it will end up on the warrant for town meeting.
Yes.
As changes to our codes.
Yes.
Thanks for the hard work. It's
Yeah,
hard to
thank
make changes to code and to spend the time to go through and walk through all these scenarios, so I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep, you're right, because I think they spent months kind of going in this direction, and all of a sudden realized this was really complicated and not working, and they kind of had to take a big,
It's
turn.
It's nice to
and-
see something that I think simplifies rather
Yeah.
than complicates.
Exactly.
At the very least, it was a good example and an effort for the members to get together, yell and scream, and actually work on communicating. So it turned out to be, it turned out, I think, to be overall a really good exercise, and I feel the board's stronger for going through the process.
Great.
Good,
Good.
thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, and to finish, a really quick item, while Jeff is here, I'd like to move actually into the new business to the wharfs and weirs, the Laureate request from Lobster Cove Road. Bill and I went and had the site visit. There were no issues there that we saw at the time. The abutters had no issues. So I'll look for a motion to,
Yeah, just to reiterate what Denise said, this is on Lobster Cove Road where it becomes very close to the shoreline. And there's a proposal to put in riprap to secure the shoreline, including some that extends on the neighbors. The neighbor is all for it and wrote a letter of support. The dock that proposes a very simple 4-foot wide, 30-foot pier, 3-foot wide, 36-foot ramp, and a float that's going to sit on the mud flats at low tide. And it's more than any of the required distances away from any other structures or the lot lines under our codes. So I think I would move that we approve this, or recommend that Jeff approve it. I guess it's the official way.
and I will second that since I was there with you at the on-site visit. Any discussion? Questions? No?
Well, I think you said that there's no issue with the butters, but actually, the abutters are actually quite supportive of this.
Yes, as I
Yeah.
mentioned, there's a
Yeah.
letter supporting.
Okay.
Yes. So, great. Well, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion carries. All right, we're done with that. Super. Great, so now we'll go back and finish old business. We'll go back and talk about the tax-acquired property by the Carters.
Oh,
So,
you guys are batting 100, and I hope you keep it up. After the last meeting that I was with you people, Wendy Wolf, with some questions about what authority you people actually could do if you wanted to do it. And it was my understanding the next day, Tom was going to consult a lawyer about what your authority, what you could do, if you could help me where the way the tax-acquired property was acquired and whatever. The next day, which was Tuesday, because like I told you before, I hadn't obtained a lawyer, I'd done this all on my own, thinking it was a no-brainer and whatever. But anyway, Tom, I went in to see Tom, it was 8 days later, and got Rob's number. And I called Rob and talked to two of his paralegals, Peter Nicholson, and said, the only reason I'm calling, I want to know, is Boothbay Harbor Selectmen got the authority to make an adjustment if legally they don't have to, if in, basically. So I explained to the paralegal, and he said Rob would call me back. So I waited all day and he didn't, so after I went to Denise's the chip dripping and told Sarah exactly, I'm not looking for a judgment, I'm just looking where he'd been a town attorney for a lot of years, tried to find out, rather than wait 2 weeks, if you guys could actually do anything, you know, if you wanted to. And he did, I did make an appointment, he called back, figured there may be a conflict of interest, so I let that go, called back Bernie and Shaw, which is your town lawyer, and told Peter Nichols that I'd really like to ask Rob a couple questions, and it wasn't for him to make a judgment. To make a long story short, the following Tuesday, 8 days went by, and I called the firm 5 times. He hadn't called me back. And I called him directly at his number, and I said, I'd like to apologize. Apparently, I'm not explaining this right. If you feel there'd be a conflict, you are answering a question from me about what authority the town had, forget what my problem is. So then he called me back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and apologized, said, you know, we knew all about, he talked to Tom, and we went at length on what could be done, what couldn't be done, as is, where is, and this and that. And I finally said, would you please put this in writing and email it to Tom to share with the selectmen exactly what you've been telling me and how you feel. And if you would, seems I'm the last one, I appreciate it, Denise, that we could just go down through it and I can explain again where I stand. After I had talked to Rob, I did go contact an attorney, which he said, you know, you shouldn't be doing blah, blah, blah. In other words, if you do everything right and the way things should be, well, how would lawyers have a job? So in other words, something that I think is simple is going to cost me a lot of money. So what I'd like to do, Denise, is just kind of go right down through what you got.
I think we're very well acquainted with Rob's emails. Do you have any new information tonight for us to consider?
Yes, I do. If you would go...
Okay, can you hop right to the new information? Because we have a long list of other things that we need to accomplish tonight, so.
Okay. I've given you people a lot of... First of all, I'd like to apologize for what happened at your last meeting involved with this. When Mr. Giles come before you people and complained about a piece of property his father had left him and complained about the tax maps. What I was going to tell you people tonight, I'm not going to mention tax maps. There's nobody in this room that knows any more about how tax maps are not right than myself. I bought 21 pieces of property in Boothbay. Out of that 21 pieces of property, 4 of them are tax-acquired property. I have never gone back to the town complaining about the tax maps and what's on the tax maps. The town sold me 9 acres up in Highland Park. 4 months ago, I give the water commission right to go over that 9 acres. You sold me your road 20 years ago on Highland Park because the survey is so wrong, but I did not come back and complain. I'm just trying to say this is far beyond the tax map. What this is the tax assessor's report. This is what you people gave me when I come in inquiring about the property. And the reason I'm giving you this is Rob referred to this. So to move this right along, his first paragraph, he gave you his thoughts and recommendations. I did not think that was what you was looking for. I thought you was looking for the legal way you could do things. But he says these are his thoughts and recommendations. He went all down through where is. Hopefully you've got this in front of you.
we're
Would
familiar
you
with it.
skip down to the next to the last
We had
paragraph?
it, we had it, yeah.
You do have it?
We've read it, we have
we've read
seen it.
No, no, I got some more copies. I'd like to go through it with you.
Yeah, if you have.
If you have
extra
more
copy.
copies,
I don't
sure.
have mine with me, so.
There's an email that we've gotten
Yeah, I
in the
have read
past.
it, though. Well, we can share, we can share up here.
No, I had two.
That's all right.
I think,
We can share, why don't you give them one to share?
Oh, great.
We're good, Doug.
Okay,
we're good.
we're good.
We're good.
fine.
Good.
We got it.
Good?
Yeah, yeah, we're friendly up here, we'll share.
Yeah.
Okay, since you're in a hurry, we can jump around. Get out of the next to the last paragraph. On the first page. First page. First page right in front of you.
Mine's printed out differently, so.
Starts out, the subject lot was listed in the town's tax assessor's records at the time it was offered as 1.3. Okay, you follow that?
Yeah.
You got the tax assessor's record in front of you.
Yep,
What he failed to mention was also on that, and going back before the tax maps were even introduced, you had tax record tax, when people buy property, like 1982, you buy properties. So before the maps were even coming into play, you had tax records of who bought property, what it was, and basically where it was. My point is that 290 feet, if you would observe that, it's circled on the same, this is the same tax record that Rob is,
Referring to.
okay. As you read in this, I bought the property as I told him, as is, where is. Here's what I'm asking you. As is, there's an old trailer on it, there's 3-4 dumps on it. Now I'll go along with as is. Now I'm gonna ask you for. I wanna know where is. It says as is, where is. If you sell a truck, you sell a boat, you sell anything. You sell it as is, where is. You tell them where to go get it. You tell them where the truck is. It might not be a motor or something in it. But if Bob wants to bring, Rob wants to bring this up, and he wants to say, and if you turn what you got on there, that is what was given to me when I come in and acquired about the property. Another thing that's on the property, like I'm saying, I'm trying to hurry this up and skip around, which I'm very upset about. Second paragraph on the second page, if you just turn it over, and it says, "We are not aware of any reason why Mr. Carter could not have had the partial surveyed. He had, I had a month to do it. As I just told you, I bought 21 parcels of land in Boothbay Harbor. Not one of them that I ever have surveyed before I bought it. Titles, I had the title search, I had title insurance and everything. The last thing I'd have surveyed would be a piece of property is going up for auction. It costs thousands of dollars to get a survey.
Right.
You get a survey and you get the property and I'm out. So I think I tried to explain this to you people the first time, that no, I didn't have a survey. And the 21 pieces of property, I got them all surveyed afterwards, out and back, and done the proper way. I did not find the survey that shortened up the acreage so I could not, my wife and I could not build the house that we desired. This was presented to me when I went to the surveyor and asked him to put a pin in. I think you guys understood that, but he didn't. Another thing, just so when I say something, I can back it up. I went to Roop and Allen Watts just for kicks. They bid 25,000, second high bidder. I said, did you have a survey? You crazy? We didn't know he was gonna get it. I said, no, I just want to be able, and another thing, we wouldn't have paid $25,000 if we known it wasn't making the bid. I said, that's irrelevant. I just wanted to know. So the fact is I don't know who we are, that's his firm or him himself, but I'm explaining to you, no, I didn't have it surveyed in the property, and I feel that's a good reason not to have it surveyed. If you care to get down, and all through, as he sees it, I do not think, I wish he'd been more direct in saying you can't do this. He did really shallow, explained next to the last paragraph about going through the articles and stuff, which I know all about. And like I say, the reason I'm not referring anymore to tax map is because of what Mr. Giles said, the waiting line. That to me was an insult for somebody to come and tell you people, if you're gonna make some kind of a restitution or try to help me because I paid so much for that property, that he would be able to stand in line because of a discrepancy on a tax map from property that he inherited. To me, that was not even, he didn't buy it from the town. And like I've tried to say, I bought several pieces. This is the first time I come back to the town to help in trying to get some help.
So let's cut to the chase here, Mr. Carter. What are you hoping we're going to do tonight?
Okay, here's what I'm hoping that you will do is, right now I've hired a lawyer, we're talking $100,000, $1,000, to negotiate with Joan Riddle on the piece of property. I told the lawyer not to call the town lawyer. I said, no, I don't want the town lawyers to be involved. It's gonna cost me enough, the lawyer, to negotiate with Joan if something can be worked out. If something can be worked out, I would like to come back and hopefully you people would have the decency to put it like he suggests, I know you can do this, on the town warrant. In other words, you guys don't feel comfortable giving me anything, I can tell that. But I think what I'd like to do, it's been 2 weeks and things haven't materialized. I still want the property, but I need the property in its entirety, what I bought, to build what I want. I don't want a second story and build, it's a buildable lot, it's a 1 acre, and I can keep going, bouncing back the assessed value and this and that. The assessed value, the lot's not even the size it was assessed. So, I mean, you can take 25% off the 80 and it's down to 60 or whatever. I'm not arguing over numbers. What I would like you people to do is when I come back to you, if somehow the lawyer can get something settled that I can acquire and do what I want to, whatever I want, I wish you people would put it on the town warrant.
Okay. So,
You follow what
I do, absolutely, got it.
The worst scenario that could happen, and that wouldn't be, it's not out of your hands. You could put it on the town warrant, and this is what probably my wife would just cry all night if it happened. If I can't acquire that stinking third of an acre, and she's willing to go on a second story building. I'm not, and she has 4 problems. We've been together 40 years on a 1-story building. 3 weeks ago, our grandkids stayed down at our house a lot. All of my daughters and grandkids is 2 stories. And one of my grandkids asked me to go up to his room. It might not sound like much. And I went up, and then the other grandkid, that 10, 11 years, come up, I want to show you something, Graham. I go up the stairs, and all I thought, going up them stairs, is Jesus. we're gonna build a retirement home, I don't want
So
two-story.
why don't you let us talk about your request?
So my understanding is what you've asked for, you've recognized that our lawyer has recommended that we don't have the authority to directly.
He said he didn't think you had the
Didn't
authority.
think.
Yeah.
Is that if you come back to us, that we put it on the town warrant. Personally, I can't speak for the other selectmen. Personally, I don't have any problem with that. Let the town decide. That seems to me that's a fair issue. You will have to make the case to the town. I'm not
I
gonna.
have no problem
I'm not
with
gonna
that.
argue for or against you, but I have no problem in getting the question in front of the town. By
Okay,
putting it on the warrant.
this is,
One caveat, there is a schedule for getting stuff on the warrant.
Okay,
And this has to happen before that schedule closes,
Okay.
for me.
Okay, that, the second thing that I was gonna ask you is what the schedule and what I wanted to, put on the article. Right now, it's right, I've hired Eaton and Peabody, and they're writing, negotiating with Riddles and this and that, and different surveys, trying to get this exactly what I presented to you in the beginning. I want what you people told me. And the reason, and I'm not gonna mention, like I say, any more about tax map. You referred me to a tax map, and I just decided I'm going through your tax assessors reports. The reason I was over a year coming, I talked to Tom last fall. I talked to Jay Warren when I first see there was a problem. The tax assessor, Jeff, very helpful with me all along there. The tax assessor was assured for 3 or 4 months that you did own that property and sell it to me, and suggested I go get
So,
another.
Tom, what's
Okay,
the
we're-
closing date of the warrant?
Well, and here's the thing. We've got about 5 weeks until we send all this information, the approved warrant and everything, off to the printer to get printed for the town report, which is roughly a month before town meeting, okay? We've only got 2 more selectmen's meetings, 3 more just 2. Yeah, just 2 in March. So we're gonna have a meeting probably sometime mid-March to have a public hearing, to have the selectmen go through all the proposed changes, warrant articles and so forth, and finalize that in March, okay? And it's gotta be clear, specific wording. It can't be this, it's gotta be very simple.
No, it'll be, no, it's,
Yeah.
see, the reason I can't say, because it hasn't happened yet, I haven't got it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I know what I've thrown out there.
Just
Well,
understand
so-
that there's a clock that's ticking and
Right,
we
there's
need to meet
and,
that.
and like, no, that's one of the reasons I come. And through reading this, and, okay,
Okay.
both lawyers,
So-
this and that, oh, I got a wonderful case,
So-
I got,
Douglas, hold
100
on a minute, because we've only heard from Bill, we're running out of time here, and I want to hear what Wendy and Russ have to say, okay? So,
Sure, I'm happy to respond. I agree with Bill. I think I spent a lot of time reading the legal opinions, looking over all the codes, et cetera, and I don't believe the selectmen have the authority to make restitution or correct this in retrospect. However, I do think the option of putting a warrant and letting the town people decide is the only possible way that we would have to give you a chance for some sort of restitution for the difference in the property. So I'm supportive
with
of
that?
that as long as it gets in within the timeline to be published in the warrants.
okay.
The,
Russ, just a
I'm
minute,
not,
just a minute.
I'm not
Let's-
sure. I don't know that this is an issue that should go on a warrant to be decided by the people of the
so
town.
you wanna give it to me yourself?
No, I
Okay.
don't. I don't. So, I mean, I'll work with the rest of the board, and if that's what you all want to do, then I could be okay with that, but I'm not sure that, that
Here's
this sets the right
Okay.
precedent for,
Here's basically what both lawyers are
Issues that
looking
need
at.
to be decided.
133 years of use from the same occupants is going down the line. Not one rotten tree or stump bending either way on the deed. As Mr. Hamlin said, the deed is golden. This deed was written in 1882. I got all the deeds, you guys have them in your possession, for a while, but I got all the deeds right up until today. The tax assessors reports and all that records are much older than the town maps. They recognize it as 290 feet on the road and 1.3 acres. Both lawyers, good case in court, this and that, because of possession in so many years, this and that. They also, what it did, my lawyer told me, and this and that, to win this in court, if it was won, it could go either way, would cost twice as much as what it cost you people to fire an employee a while ago. Twice as much. And I said, what are you talking about? They said $80,000 to $90,000 and no guarantee.
So-
Because that's the way the court system runs, and that's the way the lawyers talk it over.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Carter. I think we're really clear on what you want and what direction you want to go in. Our next meeting is March 9th, and I would recommend that you work with Tom as soon as you have some more specifics on what you would hope the warrant article to look at, and then that warrant article will come to the board, and we'll discuss it along with the other warrant articles when we
Okay,
vote on
because
what
like
will
I
happen.
said, your lawyer,
But-
your lawyer said my only salvation would be if you people
That
could
approach.
see fit to
Right.
put it on and let the town people vote.
That's right, he did. I think we're all very clear on that.
Which to me, I don't see why you'd be afraid of the town people voting either way. I don't know why that would, just because you don't want me to.
So I
Maybe
guess
the town people sees it in a different way.
what we
Well-
would need is a draft of the language, right?
Right.
The draft of the language is very simple, two
Good.
sentences, I'd say.
Well, great. We'll look forward to seeing that then in a few weeks, in a couple of weeks. So I would say 2
I
or
was
3
going
weeks.
to ask for you to put it on the town warrant with the selectmen's
So-
recommendation. I don't blame you for all
Great.
smiling.
Okay. So I think that concludes old business.
I just have to say,
Yeah.
this is all part of our plan, Tom, to increase participation in town meeting.
Ah,
No,
boy.
part of your plan was,
There you
you already
go.
decided what you want to do in executive session 2 weeks ago. I'm not stupid.
Okay, so let's move on to new business. We would like to appoint someone to take on the vice chair role for the remainder of this town fiscal year. And,
I can think of no
We,
better
um,
candidate
Can we
than Bill
nominate
Hamlin.
somebody?
okay, I think I heard a nomination from Wendy for Bill Hamlin. Do we have a second?
I second that
Okay,
heartily.
any discussion? Are you willing to take that on, Mr. Hamlin?
I'm willing.
Okay, great. So
May
all
we
in-
vote by acclamation?
all right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.
Thank you, Bill.
The next item under new business is to appoint Scott C. to the Board of Appeals. And somewheres in this pile, there was an application from Scott. Scott is from 206 Atlantic Avenue. He is a history professor up at Orono. And for not much longer, at least that's what he tells me, he hopes it will be for not much longer. At any rate, he has, I think he does a lot of work from home, and he says he has enough time to make all the requisite appeals board meetings. So I would look for a,
I move we
Motion.
appoint Scott C. to the Board of Appeals.
I second that.
great, any discussion? No? Great, all in favor? Motion carries.
Express our appreciation.
Yeah, he's a very nice fellow, and very smart and thoughtful, and I think that he'll do very well on the appeals board. All right, the next item is discussion on Spirit of America Award nomination, and I think this is really just a reminder, we had an email about this, but let's maybe over the next month or so do some thinking about who would be good folks to nominate for the Spirit of America
And
nomination.
let's encourage the public to put forth nominations if they know somebody who should,
Exactly.
is
Send in
deserving of the
suggestions,
Spirit of
yeah.
America Award.
Okay, which really looks
Can I throw an email?
at volunteers.
Please.
What?
Sure.
Gary Clausen.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Good, that's a possibility. I don't think
Good,
we've
bad, or
done,
Otherwise, he's had a lot to do over the years with the process.
Yep.
yeah, exactly. Great. Thank you. So that concludes new business, I believe, and so we'll move into public forum. Mike, you have a quick public forum item?
Couple quickies. Mike Tomko, 59 Rhodes End. I think it was a couple of weeks ago I passed these out. These were this information about a free, when do you hear of something free to do? A free seminar and workshop that's being offered this coming Friday at 7 p.m. in Damerscott at the Baptist Church. That's the new one with the new white steeple, top of the hill. It is about Nick Butner talking about the blue zones. And these are sponsored by National Geographic Society. They went out and got scientists to determine what were the factors important in towns where people had the highest quality of life from ages 1 to 100. And they've summarized this, and he's offering a free presentation up in Damerscott. It's a wonderful opportunity, great lecture. There's going to be a workshop all based around it, but 7 o'clock, check the newspaper. There's going to be an article about it, and love to have people come if they can to listen about living longer, better, and importance of longevity in our senior communities. The other thing is that this coming Friday, from 5 to 7 over the Watershed Tavern, there's a get-together thanking Jim Chaosis for his service up in the town of Boothbay. There'll be food and beverage sponsored by our friend Frank Bassett, who apologized for not being here this evening. And that's
We
up the
miss him
Watershed.
sorely.
So everyone's welcome to go wish Jim a fond farewell on his way up to Rockland.
When was that?
It's Friday from 5 to 7 at the Watershed Tavern.
Same night as this.
Yes, and then you can go up to Damerscott at 7 o'clock.
Okay,
Great.
great, thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move into executive session under...
I had just a couple of things.
Sure.
Where do we stand on the economic development meeting next schedule?
We're waiting for some dates, proposed dates to be thrown out there for
Okay.
March sometime.
Since, and Jim is doing that, right?
Yeah, or
And,
Dan.
Maybe on his short list, we should maybe take over that scheduling, I guess,
So
or,
we could. I think he said he was going to give it to Dan,
okay.
so. But, and I put out there, you know, sometime, the best time that would work for me was from the second week in March
All right,
onward.
I just,
Yeah,
it had been a while and wasn't
Right,
sure.
exactly.
We were carrying the momentum through on that.
yes,
Yes, thanks.
yes, we are. We just had a hard time with everybody's schedule. We
Yeah.
couldn't find a time
Yeah.
to meet this month. So, anything else? No? Mr. Engert?
I missed it, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Were there any changes to the FEMA requirements for the town of Boothbay Harbor? And if so, are you in the process of rewriting or including any changes that may have been required in our ordinances?
I can answer that. That's going to be on the warrant for town meeting. We have to adopt new FEMA maps and so forth, and also update our shoreline zoning ordinances to comply with that.
So that will all happen before the 16th of July, which is I believe, the deadline?
Yep, that warrant article will be discussed at the public hearing, and
Now
I'll
I'll
have,
go back to number one. Were there any changes for Boothbay Harbor?
you'd have to ask Jeff that, to be honest with you, Bruce, because I just skimmed the article and he didn't mention anything that was substantial that had
Bruce,
changed.
I don't have any detailed knowledge. There were some changes, but they were not wholesale changes that would
They were
drastically change.
Nothing of material.
Nothing.
I don't think anybody who wasn't in the flood zone, you know.
Is now.
Is now, and Similarly, I don't think anybody who is in the flood zone is out of it.
Fair enough. Just don't want to miss the opportunity.
No, it's a good,
Otherwise, you're going to have,
it's a good point. We should make sure we pay appropriate attention to that when we have the public hearing for the warrant
all
articles.
of the lenders that are getting federal money, you shut the town down.
Right.
There's going to be an awful lot of people that are going to be awfully upset.
Correct. No, good point. Thank you for raising it.
Okay, so, can we have a motion
I
to move
move
into
that
executive
we-
session?
Go into executive session, but I need the language.
Under MRSA Title I, Chapter
Title I,
13,
there you go.
Chapter 1,
This is a team motion.
4056A,
Personnel,
personnel.
thank you, personnel. So,
Nothing more specific than you can give us.
and we are going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is to approve the warrants. So I'll look for a motion to approve the warrants.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'm gladly to move that.
Second.
Okay, it's not debatable. All in favor? Motion carries.